The camera in Margaret's nightstand drawer was supposed to be junk, a forgotten gadget from before smartphones. For days after her funeral, it sat in a cardboard box in our guest room. On the fourth day, when I finally turned it on, I found a single video. It started with Margaret looking straight into the lens and saying, "If you're watching this, someone tried to change what I really wanted." That sentence explained everything my husband had been trying not to say. My name is Emma. I'm 42 years old. I live in Westchester County. Until last year, I was married to Daniel Whitfield, and for 3 years, I was the one who took care of his mother while her health fell apart. Margaret had congestive heart failure and early dementia. Some days she was sharp and funny. Other days, she didn't remember what month it was. She'd lived in the same white house on Birchwood Lane for over 40 years. Daniel and his sister Rachel grew up there. Their father died first. Margaret stayed. That house was her anchor. When her heart started failing, that house became my second job. At first, it was simple things. I stopped by after work to drop off groceries. I'd cook dinner so she didn't eat frozen meals every night. She hated eating alone, so I sat with her. Then the nights got harder. She would wake up confused, try to get out of bed, and almost fall. I started staying over, just in case. "Emma, you don't have to do this," Daniel said once. He was already half-dressed for work. "Hospice can handle most of it." "Hospice isn't here at 3 in the morning, I answered. "I am." He nodded, grateful in the abstract way of someone who didn't really want to change his own routine. He wrote checks, I changed sheets. How Daniel and I started. I met Daniel at a wedding 12 years ago. He was funny at the reception, quiet at the after party, kind on our first 3 dates. He introduced me to Margaret 4 months in. I remember driving to Birchwood Lane, more nervous than I wanted to admit. Margaret opened the door in an apron dusted with flour. "You look hungry," she said. "Come eat." Daniel never feeds his girlfriends properly. We talked for 2 hours about a mystery novel she'd just finished. Daniel and his father watched a football game in the next room. When I left that night, Margaret squeezed my hand at the door. "You're the first one he's brought home that I actually liked," she said. I married Daniel 2 years later. Margaret cried at the wedding, the good kind of crying. For the first several years, our marriage was ordinary in the best way. We rented a small townhouse 2 miles from her house. We didn't have children. That was its own quiet sadness, one I don't need to describe in detail here. It also meant I had time other people didn't have, time I later gave to Margaret without a second thought. Small warning signs. Daniel changed slowly over the years, not all at once. Around year 5 of our marriage, he got a promotion at his marketing firm. Longer hours, more business trips. Visits to his mother shrank from weekly to monthly. I remember one dinner, about 2 years before Margaret's diagnosis, when I asked him if he thought he should see her more often. "She's fine on her own," he said, cutting his chicken without looking up. "She's not helpless." I let it go. I told myself it was just a busy season at work. Looking back, that sentence was the first crack. He wasn't defending his schedule. He was defending his distance. Rachel, meanwhile, was always good at looking present without actually being present. She'd throw a big birthday dinner for Margaret once a year, complete with a hired photographer, and post pictures online with captions like, "Forever grateful for my mom." Then she wouldn't call for a month. The diagnosis. The day Margaret got her diagnosis, the cardiologist wouldn't look at her directly while he said the words congestive heart failure and early dementia almost in the same sentence. Daniel held her hand in that office. For a few weeks after, he called every day, visited on weekends, even offered to pay for a full-time caregiver. That effort faded fast. The caregivers we hired either couldn't handle Margaret's temper on bad days or weren't trained enough to manage her medications properly. By month 3, someone needed to step in permanently. No family meeting decided this. It just became me. The first night I stayed. I remember the first night I slept at Birchwood Lane, not as a guest, but as a caretaker. Margaret woke at 3 a.m., confused, calling out for her late husband. I sat with her until sunrise, holding her hand, telling her she was safe. By morning, she didn't remember the panic, but she remembered I'd stayed. Over toast, she said simply, "Thank you for not leaving." That became our unspoken agreement for the next 3 years. Rachel's comment about the medication list. About a year before Margaret died, I got the flu and hired a night nurse for 1 week to cover for me. I was writing out the medication schedule for the nurse when Rachel visited unannounced. She looked over my shoulder at the list. "You're taking on too much, Emma," she said. "She's not even your mother. Maybe you should let Daniel and me handle more of this." I told her I'd be glad if she took the next few night shifts. She never did, not once. But her sentence, "She's not even your mother," stayed in my head. It explained later exactly how she justified everything that came next. Margaret's October warning. One evening in October, Margaret had one of her clear days. I helped her into bed. Her hands were steady, her voice strong. She grabbed my wrist and pulled me closer. "Emma," she said, "I need you to hear me with your whole brain." I smiled. "I'm listening." "The house," she said. "This house. When I'm gone, it goes to you. Not Rachel, not Daniel, you." I froze. "Margaret, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." She squeezed harder than I thought possible. "You come because you care. They come when it looks good. I know the difference. I already told Martin. It's written." Martin was the family lawyer. I knew his name. I'd seen his letterhead. Hearing her say she'd told him made the moment feel heavy. I had spent my adult life working as a paralegal. I understood wills, capacity, signatures. But standing by her bed, I didn't think like a legal assistant. I thought like a daughter-in-law who didn't want to start a war. "Thank you," I said softly, "but you don't have to worry about me. You should do what feels right." "I just did," she said. Then she let go of my wrist and closed her eyes. I didn't tell Daniel about that conversation. I didn't tell Rachel. It felt like something Margaret wanted to say to me, not to them. I regret that now. The final 6 months. Over the next 6 months, Margaret's health slid downhill. Hospice nurses started coming regularly. They set up a hospital bed in the dining room. The oxygen machine hummed in the corner. Her pills filled a plastic organizer the size of a shoebox. I took unpaid leave from my job to be there. We could afford it, barely. Daniel said, "You sure?" but didn't fight me. My days became simple. Breakfast, pills, doctor calls, laundry, bed changes, meals, and long, quiet hours where Margaret either slept or talked about the past. She told me about her first years in that house, hosting Thanksgiving when money was tight, painting the porch herself, her husband's heart attack, how she'd looked out the bedroom window the morning after his funeral and decided she was never moving. "You don't leave a house that knows your whole life," she said once. "That's how you get lost." Rachel's visits increased slightly as Margaret grew weaker, but they felt different. She would arrive with her laptop, hug her mother, then spend half the visit in the kitchen whispering with Daniel. Once I walked in as Rachel was saying, "We have to finish this while she can still sign." When I entered, she smiled brightly. "We're just talking about funeral planning," she said. I believed her. I had no reason not to. The week of the closed door. The second week of February stands out in my memory. Margaret had 3 good days in a row. Her eyes were clear, her speech was steady. Hospice notes, I would later learn, marked those days as lucid. On the 3rd day, an unfamiliar man arrived. He carried a leather briefcase and a stack of papers. "This is Gerald Finch," Daniel said. "Mom asked him to come. She wants to update some things." "Where's Martin?" I asked. "I thought he handled her stuff." "Martin's busy. Finch is helping with the new arrangements," Rachel said quickly. I didn't like that answer, but I reminded myself it wasn't my decision. I made tea. I helped Margaret to the study. Then Daniel closed the door. I could have insisted on staying in the room. I could have called Martin. I could have said, "She has dementia. This should be done very carefully." I did none of those things. I told myself I didn't want to be the overbearing in-law who questioned everything. From the hallway, I heard Finch's voice a few times. "Sign here, initial here, Do you understand this part?" Margaret answered softly. Rachel laughed once, too loudly. After an hour, they all came out. Margaret looked tired. Finch left. Daniel said nothing. 3 weeks after that meeting, Margaret grew much weaker. She stopped eating solid food. She slept most of the day. The hospice nurse told us it was a matter of days, maybe a week. I stayed every night during that stretch. On what turned out to be her second to last evening, Margaret opened her eyes and looked directly at me. "Emma," she whispered, "did you find it yet?" I leaned in close. "Find what, Margaret?" She smiled faintly and closed her eyes again. I thought it was confusion. I didn't know then that she meant the camera. The morning I found her. It happened early on a Tuesday. I woke at 6 to bring her tea and found her still, hands relaxed, mouth closed, eyes soft but empty. The first thought in my head was not legal or practical. It was simple. I am alone in this house with her body. I called the hospice nurse. Then I called Daniel. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and held Margaret's hand until the nurse arrived. The funeral. The funeral was small. Rachel wore black and spoke about the best mother in the world, about how Margaret had taught her everything about strength. I stood in the second row and listened. Dementia blurs memories. Funerals blur roles. No one wanted to hear about who had been there at 3 a.m. and who had not. Several neighbors approached me after the service, not Rachel. One older woman, Patricia, hugged me tightly and said, "You were the one who was really there. Everyone on this street knows it." I thanked her quietly. It was the only honest thing said that day. The will reading. 11 days later, we sat in Finch's conference room. The room was cold. The chairs were too soft. A single framed photo of a sailboat hung on the wall. Finch shuffled papers and cleared his throat. "This is the last will and testament of Margaret Whitfield," he said, "executed February 10th of this year." February 10th, the week of the closed door, the updated arrangements. He started reading. The language was standard: debts, taxes, personal effects. I listened for one thing: the house. Her cash and investment accounts, Finch said, are to be divided equally between her 2 children, Daniel and Rachel. Daniel nodded, staring at the table. Rachel smoothed her skirt. Her jewelry, Finch continued, is to be given to her daughter, Rachel. Rachel smiled. And the property located at 14 Birchwood Lane, including the house and land, is to be given in full to Rachel Whitfield. He stopped there. No mention of me, no mention of those October words, "The house is yours." There was a generic sentence thanking family members who assisted in her final years, without names or gifts attached. I could have been a neighbor in that sentence. I didn't cry. Instead, I asked, "Mr. Finch, was there a previous will?" "Yes," he said, "executed 3 years prior, but this document revokes all prior wills." "Was Margaret's longtime attorney involved?" I asked. "Martin Osei?" Finch stiffened. "No, Mrs. Whitfield chose to work with me for this revision." Daniel stared harder at the table. Rachel looked at Finch as if willing him to talk faster. I didn't argue in that room. There is a time for emotion and a time for record keeping. Right then, I chose to record. The confrontation at home. On the drive home, Daniel gripped the steering wheel too tightly. "You're quiet," he said. "So are you," I answered. At home, he poured a drink he didn't finish. I waited until he sat down. "Explain February," I said. He ran a hand through his hair. "Mom wanted Rachel to have the house. She felt Rachel needed it more. Her business is struggling. She's paying city rent. We have our own place. We're fine." "How did she say it?" I asked. "In her words, not Rachel's." "She said you'd already done enough, that she didn't want to burden you with a big old house, that Rachel needed stability." "Is that exactly what she said?" I asked, "or what Rachel said she said?" Daniel looked away. I changed tack. "Why Finch, not Martin?" "Rachel found him," he said, "through a friend. Martin's old school. Finch was willing to move things faster." "Faster," I repeated, "with a woman who had dementia and heart failure." He said nothing. The next question came out quieter than I expected. Did she ever say, even once, that she wanted me to have the house? Daniel hesitated. She mentioned it. When? That October night. She said something like, Emma should have this place. What did you say? I asked. I told her it wouldn't be fair to Rachel, he answered. It felt as if someone had opened a window in January and let all the heat out of the room. Every night I had spent at Birchwood Lane, every bowl of soup, every pill, every load of laundry, that whole invisible ledger slammed against one sentence. I told her it wouldn't be fair to Rachel. I didn't trust myself to respond. Instead, I stood up and went to the guest room. Finding the camera. That room was full of boxes from Margaret's house. Photos, old sweaters, kitchen gadgets. A box labeled bedroom sat on the floor. I opened it and found the camera. It was small, silver, slightly scratched. I plugged it in, waited for the charging light, then pressed power. There was one video. I pressed play. Margaret's face filled the screen. She sat in her armchair by the bedroom window. Sunlight came in from the left. She wore the pale blue cardigan I'd bought her for Christmas. If you're watching this, she said, I'm probably either gone or worried someone is trying to change what I wanted. Her voice was clear. No slurred words, no confusion. I'm alone, she said. I set up this camera myself. No one told me to do this. I'm having a good day. My mind is working. I can still remember the names of all the nurses and what I had for breakfast. She paused and smiled. Oatmeal. Too much cinnamon. Then her face grew serious. I want this on record, she said. My house on Birchwood Lane goes to Emma. My children, Daniel and Rachel, have had plenty of chances to be here. They chose other things most days. Emma chose me. She chose to be here at 3 in the morning when I was frightened and confused. She chose to clean up after me when I was ashamed. She chose to take time off work she needed. That matters to me. She looked straight into the lens. I love my children. I do. But love is not the same as gratitude. If anyone brings you a paper saying the house goes somewhere else, you should ask who it really benefits and whether I was having a good day when I signed it. This is me, on a good day, telling you the truth. She listed specific things. The times Rachel canceled at the last minute. The nights Daniel didn't return calls. The holidays I spent alone with her. She did it calmly, not bitterly. I don't want Emma left with nothing after all this, she said at the end. So I'm saying it here, with no one in the room but me and this silly camera. The house is hers. Then she reached forward and turned the camera off. I watched the video twice. On the third viewing, I wrote down the date and timestamp. Then I called Martine Osei. Martine, I said. Emma Chapman. I was Margaret's daughter-in-law. I remember, he said. I was surprised I wasn't called for her estate. So was I replied, and told him about Finch, the February will, and the video. He listened in the quiet way good lawyers listen. Then he said, Emma, if that video is as clear as you say, we may be dealing with an invalid will. He explained things I already knew from work, but needed to hear from someone else. A person with dementia can still sign a valid will, but only if they understand what they're doing at that moment. That's called capacity. If they don't have it, and especially if the new will heavily favors the people arranging it, the document can be challenged. Hospice records can show which days were clear and which weren't. Witness lists matter. The choice of attorney matters. The timing matters. Do you want to contest it? He asked. I thought about the house. I thought about Margaret's hand on my wrist. I thought about Daniel telling her it wouldn't be fair to Rachel. Yes, I said, I do. Preparing the case. The weeks after that call were busy in a quiet, focused way. Martin requested Margaret's full hospice file. Denise, her main nurse, agreed to testify. I gathered old photos, calendar entries, and text messages that showed how often I'd been at the house compared to Daniel and Rachel. Martin warned me the process would be slow and uncomfortable. Rachel would fight hard, he said, because losing the house meant losing her main financial safety net. Daniel, he guessed, might not fight as hard once he had to answer questions under oath. People lie easily in living rooms, Martin told me. They lie much less easily in front of a judge. Denise's records. Denise's hospice notes became one of our strongest pieces of evidence. For the exact day Finch listed as the signing date, her notes read, "Patient disoriented as to time, confusing days of the week, needed repeated reorientation to person and place." Denise told me months later that she had raised concerns with Daniel that same week. "I told him she was having a rough stretch," she said. "He said it was just a bad day. I didn't push harder. I wish I had." Gerald Finch's thin file. When Martin requested Finch's full file on the will, it turned out to be almost empty. No capacity evaluation, no independent witnesses, only Daniel and Rachel signed as witnesses, which is unusual and legally risky for a will of that size. No notes explaining why Margaret suddenly wanted to change a plan she'd kept steady for years. Martin found this pattern deeply troubling. "A good lawyer protects a vulnerable client from exactly this kind of situation," he told me. Finch didn't protect her. He protected the people paying him. The court proceedings. The court case lasted 8 months. I won't describe every hearing, only the moments that mattered. Rachel's lawyer argued that Margaret simply changed her mind, that the January video was an emotional outburst, not a legal document, that people are allowed to change their wills. Our side argued something simpler. Margaret's wishes had been consistent for years, documented in 2 separate ways, the earlier written will and the video, both made when she was clearly capable. The February will appeared during a documented bad week, drafted by a stranger, witnessed only by the people who benefited from it. Daniel's testimony. Daniel's testimony was the hardest part of the whole process for me to watch. Under oath, he admitted that Rachel had come to him in December, panicked about debt from a failed business venture. He admitted Rachel found Finch through a friend who said Finch wouldn't ask too many questions. He admitted his mother had told him she wanted me to have the house and that he had discouraged her. Watching him say these things out loud in a quiet courtroom in front of a judge felt different than hearing them privately in our kitchen. In our kitchen, it was an argument between husband and wife. In that courtroom, it was a fact on the record, forever. The ruling. The judge took several weeks to decide. When the ruling came, it was direct. The February will was invalid. Margaret's capacity on the day of signing was not properly documented or verified. The process involved an unfamiliar attorney selected by the primary beneficiary. No independent witnesses were present. The new will contradicted Margaret's clearly and repeatedly stated wishes, supported by video evidence recorded during a documented period of full mental clarity. The earlier will, written by Martin 3 years before, was reinstated. That will left the house to me, along with a modest sum in thanks for care already given and care still to come. Daniel and Rachel still received the bulk of Margaret's savings and investments, split evenly, exactly as she had always planned, before anyone tried to change it. I did not celebrate in that courtroom. Rachel cried. Daniel stared at the floor. After the verdict, Martin later told me that Gerald Finch was facing a formal complaint with the State Bar Association over how he had handled Margaret's case, along with at least 2 other similar complaints from other families. I didn't follow that story closely. My focus wasn't Finch's punishment. It was the fact that Margaret's real voice had finally been heard. Our marriage ended quietly after that. We had no children, which made the practical side simpler, even if the emotional side wasn't. Daniel kept his half of Margaret's accounts and his car. I kept my savings and the house that had been at the center of everything. Moving into Birchwood Lane. On the day I moved into Birchwood Lane, the house felt both familiar and strange. The oxygen machine was gone. The hospital bed had been removed, but Margaret's chair was still by the window. I sat in it with a cup of tea and looked out at the old oak tree in the backyard. Neighbors introduced themselves in a new way. They had seen me before, carrying groceries and trash bags. Now they brought welcome baskets and told me stories about Margaret I hadn't heard, about her baking pies for the whole street when a neighbor got sick, about her sitting on the porch with their kids when they were scared of thunderstorms. Margaret would be glad you're here, Patricia said one afternoon over coffee. She talked about you more than she talked about her own children sometimes. I didn't know how to answer that, so I just nodded and refilled her cup. Watching the video again. Sometimes in the evenings, I plug in the old camera and watch the video again. Not for legal reasons anymore, for personal ones. I refuse to let my final act be a lie, Margaret says in it. If you love someone, you tell the truth about them, even when it's uncomfortable. She knew her children. She knew me. She knew time would blur memories and that money would sharpen motives. So she recorded herself on a day when her mind was clear, alone, without anyone coaching her, and put her real wishes in a place her children didn't think to look. Final thoughts. People sometimes ask if I feel guilty that Rachel lost the house. They ask if I worry Daniel will never forgive me for contesting the will. My answer is simple. I didn't take anything. I refused to let someone else take what wasn't theirs. Rachel tried to step into a space Margaret had reserved for me. Daniel tried to help her do it because he thought I would always be fine. They were wrong. Margaret decided who deserved that house. She gave her reasons out loud, on camera, in her own words, on a clear day. My only job was to make sure those reasons survived her. The camera in the nightstand drawer was supposed to be junk. It turned out to be the one thing they couldn't rewrite.